Hey tribe, how are you? So I've been driving into central London today and listening to some Alan Watts, really enjoying that. And it's brought through this share about how we can really allow the full spectrum of ourselves. And obviously we talk about allowing and accepting in the Fearless Life Guide, and how they interlink in a inner practice of accepting the totality of who we are as creators. And obviously this is really helpful for us when we're having to face our darkness and having to face and transform our own densities, that when we're seeing the darkness and the density and the shadows and the shame all around us or around us, we can feel that from within ourselves. And that is the energy that we're looking at, that we're allowing to be there, that we're accepting is there. And through that process alone is ultimately the transformation, that we practice feeling the fullness of who we are in allowance of it, because it is an aspect of our existence. And with the allowing, that's the expansion ultimately, that allows our own perception to expand, to be more than what it was before, because perhaps we were in patterns, more than likely in patterns of denying and masking and pressurizing that as conflict. So because we want to pretend it's not there, due to our limited or our kind of egoic projection based on our social programming, right? So we have a social program of being a good person, a lovely person, whatever type of person we thought we were supposed to be, or we bought into the belief that we are. Those are the shades, or some of the conflicts that we're having to look at and sort of bust open through allowing it to be there, by accepting it as a feeling inside that maybe isn't serving us anymore, and simply by bringing it up into our awareness, and often when we're called to do so, to share and express it as part of our awareness, then we're like lifting the lid, you could say. We're letting some of the pressure off by honoring it, and by not pretending it's not there anymore, or not pretending there's something to be ashamed of or guilty of, by having these false projections, and it doesn't have to be false, because it's not false or true. It's just a projection one way or another through our own creation. And again, when we're creating disharmony, conflict, and deception, or whatever around us, that's aspects of ourselves that we're ultimately healing, and that we can move through and move beyond by allowing our own essence to really keep moving in the direction that feels most abundant to us. And that really is, this whole thing is about sort of dropping into this infinite space so that we can perceive, allow, and accept the totality of our creative field, which is right in the feeling. It's like the connection to the feeling. And then that holding of space allows us to see our thought projections, allow us to trace into like more of the root causes of why we behave in certain ways and why we act out in certain ways. And when we can just be that empty space, we can be a lot more honest with ourselves about the contempt, the hatred, the jealousy, the resentment, the lack of accountability. Wherever those lay in our lives, we can be more aware of them by allowing ourselves to feel the fullness of who we are, instead of denying or masking or running away from. And that's something, I could admit that's definitely been a pattern for me, as either escapism, coping mechanisms, and just plain running away, running to Bali or running to England, or running away from these things. And hence part of coming to this place where knowing you can't keep running. At some point, you're just going to have to sit still and face yourself, face your energy, right? Face the totality of the experience that you are. And so I'm also getting how we shift from that linear perspective, right? And how beneficial that can be for us in as far as relating to our eternal cosmic broader self versus the linear timeline achieving human self, right? And weirdly how they actually go hand in hand, they go together, because something else that I'm really getting here, and it's quite a nice relief. This whole evolution it's already done. We're already a part of it. We are being done as much as we're doing, right? So evolution is a natural aspect of this creative field. It's part of contrast. It's part of birthing intentionally into these bodies, is to actually experience duality, to experience the contrast of our own existence, right? To know one is to know the other, right? To know ourselves as a finite self is part of our internal knowing, or revelatory knowing into knowing the infinite, knowing God, knowing the universe, right? Whatever we want to call it, the universal intelligence. We birth that through the suffering that we create, through the limitation, the darkness, whatever it is, right? We birth that through contrast. Hence, living in such dynamic times that we call a great awakening, collectively, more and more, we're seeing this great awakening, a birthing of a new earth. That this is a collective story as much as potentially the kind of path of destruction or Armageddon or apocalypse, that those are collective stories. And why we feel disparity in any given moment is like, in that moment, how close we are, or the gap we want to close between the truth of why we're here versus the kind of mental clutter or the limited stories that we're buying into. So depending on how bad we feel is how far away we are from our potential, how far away we are from the stream of our intent, right? The I guess you could say destiny, or purpose, yeah? So whatever intent we came here for, through our learning and exploration and seeing the contrast, we close the gap of like the higher intent versus all of the things we wanted and desired and needed to learn to be able to close the gap. And then as we close the gap, we can just feel more centered, more aligned, right? More in the flow, more living intuition, more just always listening. And that's more and more how the experience is for me as I continue to share the journey with you guys. It's this sort of perpetual listening, and actually increasingly so the more I let go of resistance, which is like anything that's not that connectedness. So and again, it really so often is not necessarily rational in a linear sense, but your reality, the more you yoke the connection, your reality continues to affirm back the working of it, the expansive feel good working of it, which then continues to permission you to keep going in that. And then also you accumulate more positive reflections. So you accumulate people that reflect back to you that inner knowing, rather than the doubt, rather than the suffering and the pain, because you've consciously transformed more of those patterns that hook you back into your default settings. So once we bridge, some emotional storms or doing all that digging work, we live more in that intuitive knowing, and that becomes your dominant new default. So that's like the, restructuring our DNA or rewiring our brain patterns. And then inevitably our patterns shift, our energy flow shifts. And ultimately, that's, I guess, the idea of rebirth and transformation, is that we really are very radically different from the person we were. And we can still see through images. We can see through projected memory of the person we were, of the stories we told, the transformation we've undergone. And it's still part of our own cyclical evolution as reflections of one another, knowing that we are all part of the totality. So it's not a higher or lower or better or worse. It's just this infinite recycling of looking at aspects of self to increase our own evolution, which is an inevitable thing. Just like the solar system, just how the solar system and our planet and our galaxy sort of working in this divine order. Our own evolution and our own healing and our own transformation is also in that divine flow, in tandem with the planets. That's astrology, obviously, right? And because we are that, depending on what we're drawn to, those are the things that reflect back to us our deeper knowing, our guideposts, our checkpoints. That's also why we have, revelatory dreams or premonition dreams and stuff. And also that's something within this living intuition or an alignment, we really do begin to access some of our more potent intuitive gifts, abilities, and psychic abilities. And here again, they're all unique. We can reflect and support one another in that, but ultimately the yoking and the bringing forth of those gifts is something we as individuals have to intuitively engage with in order to channel that expression. And obviously that's part of our getting to know ourselves and our creative flow, because how that comes through us will be different for all of us, right? Speaking, teaching, leading, whatever it might be, writing, a lot of creative expression comes in different forms. More deep meditation processes, more taking ourselves away on retreat to discover, maybe further learning, further education, however it comes through, right? And again, a lot of us can see different doors opening, and it's like we can take our time feeling into the timeline of walking through those doors. So allow yourself to be who you are in the fullness of who you are. Because it's really in that acceptance of the fullness that we can hold dear our deepest darknesses and our deepest densities and all of the shadows and all of the oh God, I did that too, I'm one with that too, and to own our creation, but from a place of total almost lightheartedness, that we're all these abundant creators who, can create darkness, conspiracy, fear, as well as the other, as well as beauty, love, light. And obviously there's a bunch of us that are here to create more love and light and beauty. And what we're recognizing is that we can't continue to kind of increase our light quotient without bouncing back and forth, it would appear, without kind of, it's like if we want to yoke more high inspiration, more higher consciousness, we have to very consciously transform our darkness. Witness, as I say in the guide, it's like Gandalf, you got to plummet to your deepest, darkest, fiery depths to keep rising. And again, intuitively, I would say for a lot of us, there's just this inner knowing of like, okay, it's like a trick we play on ourselves, and eventually it can become more lighthearted once we start to yoke and get through and work through enough of our densities. So it is grace. There is a supportedness here. And I think with the new energies as well, there's an even greater feeling of being supported on this journey, and feeling the support very tangibly appear in our lives, whether in people, money, a change or shift in circumstances, or again, just a shift in perception makes everything feel lighter. And then eventually new people, things start coming in for us. Well, I think that's it, you guys. Have a wonderful day. I look forward to speaking to you real soon. Take care. Feel free to share. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.